And this week's topic for Ramble Rouser is whatever is on this paper. Stay. Pedophilia. Fun. I was hoping for a more fun topic to talk about today, but okay. Um, so obviously, right off the bat, it's not even a question. It's not even something that needs to be said because it's just blatant, pure fact that is undeniable and unarguable. Pedophilia is evil. It is bad. It is horribly destructive and violating and traumatic. And here's the thing, there are actually people who try to argue for it. They refer to themselves as MAPs, minor attracted peoples, and try to even claim themselves as part of the LGBTQ plus community. And those people can fuck right on off. I This is hard for me to talk about because not out of a personal thing like so many people have gone through. I personally haven't, luckily. But it's hard for me to talk about because it pisses me off so much for the people who have gone through it, for the people who have suffered at the hands of family members, at the hands of strangers, who have been trafficked into the sex trade. And even all the way back in history, where royalty and people of high status would sexually assault children as a way to establish dominance, as a way to show themselves as better, as as a higher status. It's sickening. It's horribly sickening and vile and evil. And like I said, this is inarguable. Some people will try, but those people are blatantly 100% undeniably wrong. And anyone who tries to argue in favor of pedophilia should be locked up just for even trying to argue for, just for trying to excuse it. There are certain crimes that I just cannot excuse, and I think that anyone who even tries to make an excuse for it should be locked up for, and that's one of them. Rape is another. Like intentional, um, just purely meditated murder, obviously, especially like serial murders, that kind of stuff. And I tend to be pretty peaceful. I tend to be pretty pacifist in most cases. I do not believe in the death penalty as an example of that. And people who do these kind of crimes, I feel, should be imprisoned for life with and I mean for their life, not a life sentence, because life sentences are bullshit and aren't actually for life. Basically, if a person can actually go through a life sentence and get out while they're still alive and actually get out of prison from a life sentence, it's not a life sentence. I don't care what the legal definition says. Anyone who commits these crimes should, especially pedophilia, should be put in prison for life. No chance of getting out ever. Not even on good behavior, not even on parole, not even for any reason, in, unless they are proven innocent. If they are proven innocent further down the line with hard facts and evidence, then that's an exception because that means they were falsely imprisoned, and anyone falsely imprisoned should be released if they are proven innocent. That's the only exception. But in that case, they wouldn't be they wouldn't be criminals. They wouldn't be guilty of that crime in the first place. So, but anyone actually guilty and proven through whatever situation should be imprisoned. And not only that, it's like they should be like treated as the worst of the worst with prisoners in every way. I'm trying to collect myself. I've I've watched over kids in kind of a daycare based role. It was specifically at my church. Well, at a couple churches, but still. And I've taught kids in in children's church. I've worked with them through VBS. I obviously have two younger siblings. I've talked about that before, and even though they're not that much younger than me, I they were younger enough to where I was old enough to, in some way, to some degree, take care of them or care for them at one point in my life. And in general, I've just always cared for kids and their well being. And I've always wanted to see kids succeed and be given just so much love and respect and opportunity to grow and become awesome. And it's just people who even try to rationalize pedophilia are disgusting. Like, sexual contact is a very personal, very adult thing. Having sexual contact with someone is an important personal thing for someone, which is why rape is so bad because it's non consensual. It's taking away that consent, it's taking away that innocence, it's taking away just that sense of being in a way. And a lot of people who go through that, because of how the way their body naturally reacts, they get traumatized by it on a mental and emotional level. And kids go through the same kind of shit. And some kids are hurt this way at such young ages. And it's like there's no proper explanation for how any of this can be seen as right. It's so disgusting. And one of the big arguments about it is consent, and that children aren't old enough to properly understand the ramifications of sex and that they can't consent to that. And yeah, like, even if a kid has heard things, like, yeah, when I was a kid, of course, I heard stuff, and a lot of kids do. Hell, there's a lot of kids who discover in one way or another pornography at an early age. But that doesn't mean that they're ready for sex. and they shouldn't be having it, and especially with someone older than them like that. Like I said, I'm pretty pacifistic in nature, and I don't believe in the death penalty, but I would not be sad to see a pedophile die. And it almost hurts to say that because of my pacifistic attitude towards that and my hatred of the death penalty. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt to say that because of how absolutely unforgivably horrible pedophiles are. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. It does not matter if it's some stranger. It does not matter if it's through sex trafficking. It does not matter if it's family. No matter who it's from, it's still just as horrible and evil. And honestly, I would not be sad to see pedophiles die. It is the one of the only cases where I can say that. Honestly, pedophiles and rapists are the only cases where I can honestly, genuinely say that it would not upset me. And I know I haven't even really said too much actually on the topic in this, and I'm not gonna like re-record it, and I'm not going to try a different topic. I drew from the hat. This is what we're talking about. Children are not mature enough in any way for that kind of thing. And honestly, it's debated over what when they are mature enough, when they are ready. But no matter what, if a person is underaged, then that's all that really matters in this case. An adult should not be having sexual relations with them in any way, shape, or form. No matter what you think the age of consent should be, no matter what you think when you think of someone is old enough and mature enough. And honestly, for me personally, I would say you shouldn't before you're 16. And if you're 16 or 17, you should only be doing it with someone of your age. And it goes beyond just the actual like act of engaging in it with these kids too. Obviously, there's been all the cases of child pornography. Even famous people like Jared from Subway getting caught in that. There's been cases of people just showing a sense of interest or saying things that imply sexual interest in children or doing things that, while not actively taking part in the activity, still implies that interest. I mean, all of that just fits with Trump alone. And of course, you have to talk about how the media can portray it. There's a lot of media that portrays underage girls in a very sexualized way, especially anime, honestly. And sometimes it's to a point where it's like, okay, it's not that bad. Like Sailor Moon is kind of on that edge there where it's like you can definitely see where it's like, oh, these are 14-year-old girls and it's a little risque, but it's not to the point of being too bad. But then you have movies like this one that just came to Netflix the other day or whatever, called Cuties, that everybody is up in arms about. Except unless you're one of the conservatives that thinks that the liberals are trying to defend it, which is not true. There's only like certain celebrities and stuff that are defending it. Liberals are just as much against it. Everyone is against it right now. It is probably the most trending thing with the, and it has the movie has the most hate behind it I've seen in a long time. Um, Everyone is against it because it sexualizes young girls. Like 11-year-old girls are shown dancing sexually, and it's disgusting and horrible. And you should never even consider seeing anything like that or supporting anything like that. And at this point, it's ridiculous that there are people who try to argue for this stuff, who try to rationalize it. Even with the Cuties movie specifically, a lot of the people are saying, "Oh, but that's what the movie's actually about. It's actually about telling us why that's bad and exploitive." And it's like, yeah, that's all well and good, but you're doing the exact thing you're supposedly speaking out against by making the movie, by casting real like young girls and having them in real life dance sexually like that and wear sexually suggestive clothing. You're literally taking part in what you're trying to speak out against. It's hypocritical as fuck. Like I said, it's hard for me to talk about this because it makes me so angry. It's hard for me to come up with a lot of a lot more than just saying it's terrible and giving examples. And when I started this series, when I put all of these little slips of paper into this hat, I put in topics that were either fun in some cases or topics that were serious. And the serious topics, I knew there were going to be ones in there when I put them in there that were going to be hard to talk about. But they're important topics too. And this is an important topic, especially currently. It's something we need to make apparent and something we need to discuss and need to just talk more openly about because it's still happening. Child sex trafficking is still happening in today's world. People who are not only just excusing but fighting for pedophilia still exist in today's world. People who put out media that glorifies that still exist in today's world. And there's a difference even between just doing it in certain media like anime or cartoons where they're fictional, completely drawn characters and stuff, than when it's like something like Cuties where it's real people acting this out. It's a completely different situation in that case. So it's like stuff like Sailor Moon or say another example, My Hero Academia, which has characters like Sue and especially Yaoyorozu having been shown in some level of sexual situations, um, especially Yaoyorozu. Um, and I mean her outfit, despite them only being like what 14, 15 years old. It's like that's a lot different than again when you have real life people, real life kids dancing like that and everything. But no matter the medium, pedophilia is still wrong. Pedophilia is always going to be wrong. But there's also complicated facets to the issues too. Like, what about and this kind of goes into the entire argument about how it's kind of hard to say with like animated stuff, because it's like, what about animated characters who are adults just look young? Like, there's that new character, Hanzu Hazuki. I don't know what it's, Yuzaki. I think it's Yuzaki. But she's like the 19-year-old girl with like the white bob cut and the giant ass breasts. But she also has like this very chibi-ish face design and everything. And people are like arguing about whether or not that's equivalent to sexualizing a child because she has a very childlike face. And people are even arguing about her body shape and everything, even though that's an invalid argument because I've seen people with that body shape in real life, and even people have been coming up and fighting against that argument and all. But it's like, you how do you argue against stuff like that? Or like even Steins Gate Zero has a character in it who is an adult, like straight up fully an adult, but she's very small, very chibi, very cutesy in her design. And it's like, but she's fully an adult. And it's like, where do you draw the line? And in my views, it's like, is the character real or are they an animated character? Is it a real person acting this character out or not? That's, in my eyes, where it draws the line. If it's a fictional character who's drawn, then it's like, one, I mean, if they're an adult, period. And two, if they're teenagers and they're just drawn a little more sexy like or whatnot, then as long as nothing really notably bad happens, then okay. But like when you have stuff like cuties happening, and something else I just found out about recently, um, I think it was Brooke Shields. I think it was Brooke Shields. Either her or some other actress with a similar name. When she was young, like 10 years old, she was featured in a photo book put out by Playboy at 10 years old, completely naked. And this was like almost 50 years ago or so when this happened. And I only found out about it recently. I had no idea about this, but that is absolutely unforgivable. Stuff like that, that is pedophilia, straight up. That is evil, straight up. There's no excuse for it. There's no getting past that. She was a 10-year-old girl. And it was taken to court too when she was older. She took the photographer to court and everything, and she lost because it was deemed non-sexual, even though it was she was posing at 10 years old. She had posed naked in a Playboy released art book, or not art book, but photo book. But that was deemed non-sexual. See, and she was made to do it too. It wasn't her choice. She was 10 years old. And her parents consented to it for her, which is also equally as disgusting. And it's like that kind of bullshit is what's wrong here. That's the kind of bullshit we need to speak out against and we need to make like a bigger deal of. So I'm going to leave this here because I've been talking a long time on this, longer than I thought I was, even though I haven't said actually a lot of detailed stuff outside of just giving examples and saying that I hate it and it's horrible and disgusting and evil and pisses me the fuck off. I'm going to leave it here. I'm just going to say now. Usually I tell you to give me your thoughts down in the comments below, but if your thoughts are anything other than that this is evil and sick and vile and disgusting, I don't want to hear from you. If you would even think to try and defend this, I don't want to hear from you. Just don't even say anything. Because anyone that would try to defend this kind of bullshit, you deserve to be locked up just for trying to defend it. So this was not the most pleasant of these Ramble Rouser videos, but thank you for tuning in anyways. And please, never stop speaking out against pedophilia. Never stop sticking up for these poor children who are forced into these positions and who have their innocence and livelihoods stolen from it. I'm Connie, I'm signing off. See y'all next time.